Huge, fast-moving wildfires have destroyed up to half of the historic Canadian town of Jasper, officials say. And the blazes are still out of control as firefighters try to save as many buildings as possible. Entire streets of the main town in Western Canada's Jasper National Park have been levelled by the fire, with video showing smouldering rubble where homes once stood and the charred remains of cars. While no deaths have been reported, some 20,000 tourists and 5,000 residents have fled the mountainous area in Alberta province, which has been hugely popular with tourists for decades. During a news conference on Thursday, a tearful Alberta Premier Danielle Smith struggled at times to recount the scale of the damage, but said potentially 30 to 50% of buildings had been destroyed. There is no denying that this is the worst nightmare for any community, she said, adding that Jasper National Park had been a source of pride for many generations. Ms. Smith became visibly emotional as she described the beauty of the park and its significance to the community, which relies largely on tourism. Some 2.5 million people visit the park and nearby Banff National Park each year. Karen Decore, the owner of the Moline Lodge in Jasper, was on holiday when she learned her hotel had burned down. On Wednesday night, she received a photograph of the building in flames. "I was horrified and devastated when I saw that photo," she told the BBC. "I think it's going to take a couple of days for the shock to wear down. It's really hard for everyone to comprehend that we lost one of our properties," she said, adding that she intended to rebuild the lodge. "The storm was ferocious, the skies went dark red, and there were whipping winds, fierce rain and lightning," she said. "We are some of the last travellers to see Jasper in its full beauty. It will be a very long time before it will recover. It's utterly devastating for them all, and my heart is breaking." Hundreds of firefighters from around the world have been deployed to help with the response, but officials warn the extent of the damage is still emerging. The focus on Thursday, they said, was on containing the towering flames which engulfed the town from two sides. Pierre Martel, director for the National Fire Management Programme at Parks Canada, said the fire was started by a lightning storm and escalated late on Wednesday as it was fanned by powerful winds. "It was just a monster at that point," Mr. Martel said. "There are no tools we have in our toolbox to deal with it." The flames reached 100 meters, 320 tord, high in some places, covering an inordinate amount of space in a very little amount of time, one official said. Mike Ellis, Alberta's Minister for Public Safety, said the fire was 5 kilometres, 3 miles, outside of Jasper when it was pushed by the winds to the town in less than 30 minutes. "Any firefighter will tell you there is little to nothing you can do when you have a wall of flames coming at you like that," he said. "Nobody anticipated that fire to come so fast, so large and so quickly." Justin Trudeau, Canada's Prime Minister, thanked the emergency services for their response to the wildfires. "As the heartbreaking images from Jasper emerge, I want to thank the brave first responders who are in Alberta right now, fighting to save every home and every community they can," he said. Environment Canada said there might soon be a reprieve from the hot and dry weather, which allowed the fire to grow, as rain is expected late on Thursday. This marks another year of difficult fire conditions for the province. Last year, a record 2.2 million hectares burned in Alberta between 1st March and 31st October. Outside Alberta, there are more than 45 active blazes in British Columbia, and fires are burning in California, Oregon, Washington, Montana, and Utah in the US. The overall number of fires has decreased around the world over the last 2 decades, but researchers say climate change could bring more lightning to forests in northern reaches of the globe, increasing the risk of wildfires. Subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. California Governor Gavin Newsom has ordered homeless encampments to be dismantled across the state in the wake of a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that allowed cities to ban people from sleeping in outdoor public places. The executive order issued on Thursday only applies to state agencies and does not directly require local municipalities to take action. This executive order directs state agencies to move urgently to address dangerous encampments while supporting and assisting the individuals living in them, and provides guidance for cities and counties to do the same, Mr. Newsom said in a statement. There are simply no more excuses. It's time for everyone to do their part. California has some of the highest concentrations of homeless in the country, and despite millions of dollars of investment, encampments continue to line sidewalks, beaches, and under freeways. A federal report noted the state accounts for nearly half of the country's unsheltered population. While Mr. Newsom's order does not require local officials to remove the encampments that are seen throughout urban parts of the state, his administration can threaten to withhold state funds from counties or cities that do not take action aligning with state policy. Critics and homeless advocates argue that criminalizing homelessness does not solve the root issues and further stigmatizes people in need. Dismantling encampments means people can lose all of their possessions, including important legal documents, medications, and other necessary items. San Francisco, California's fourth most populous city, had previously cheered the Supreme Court decision in the case Grants Pass v. Johnson, and has recently said it has already begun to remove tents. The governor's order comes as Republicans criticize Democrats for homeless problems that are affecting many American cities, many of which are run by Democratic local governments. Kamala Harris, a native of California's Bay Area who served as San Francisco District Attorney before becoming a senator and then vice president, has recently launched her bid to be the Democratic nominee to run against Republican Donald Trump for president in November's election. Republicans are keen to tie her political record to urban issues, including homelessness, crime, and drug use. Mr. Newsom, who is also a Democrat, is widely believed to have ambitions for higher office, including the presidency. California, with its high cost of housing, had an estimated 180,000 people in 2023 living without permanent shelter, according to an annual report from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Homelessness is on the rise in the U.S., fueled in part by chronic shortages of affordable housing. Around 653,000 people did not have homes in 2023, the largest number since tracking began in 2007, according to U.S. government figures. Experts who work with homeless people condemned the decision. California non-profit group People Assisting the Homeless, PATH, said in a statement that organizations that provide services to the homeless were not consulted on the governor's order. The group said Newsom's order will push vulnerable residents off state property and will not only be counterproductive, but will set our efforts back tremendously. Scout Katovich, a lawyer for the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, told BBC News that Mr. Newsom is taking the conservative Supreme Court up on its invitation to make homelessness a crime. She added,
criminal organization with Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who is currently jailed in the U.S. Arrested with Zambada on Thursday was Guzman's son, Joaquin Guzman Lopez, said the U.S. Justice Department. In February, Zambada was charged by U.S. prosecutors with a conspiracy to make and distribute fentanyl, a drug more powerful than heroin that has been blamed for the U.S. opioid crisis. Details of the arrests of the two men remain unclear, but it appears they flew into the United States. Citing Mexican and U.S. officials, the Wall Street Journal reports that Zambada was tricked into boarding the plane by a high-ranking Sinaloa member following a months-long operation by Homeland Security Investigations and the FBI. The paper added that Zambada belonged to inspect clandestine airfields in Mexico. Officials said Zambada was lured onto a private plane under false pretenses by Guzman Lopez, the New York Times reports. Zambada believed the plane would fly south in Mexico, but instead it flew north and landed in El Paso, said Fox News correspondent Brian Lenus, citing law enforcement sources. Guzman Lopez surrendered to U.S. authorities and turned on Zambada because he blamed Mayo for the capture of his father, Mr. Lanus added. In a written statement on Thursday evening, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said the two men lead one of the most violent and powerful drug trafficking organizations in the world. Fentanyl is the deadliest drug threat our country has ever faced, and the Justice Department will not rest until every single cartel leader, member, and associate responsible for poisoning our communities is held accountable, he added. American prosecutors say the Sinaloa cartel is the biggest supplier of drugs to the U.S. U.S. authorities have previously noted that fentanyl is the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45. Fourth wave of fentanyl crisis hits every corner of U.S., and told jurors. Mayo Zambada did, he claimed. According to the U.S. State Department, Zambada is also the owner of several legitimate businesses in Mexico, including a large milk company, a bus line, and a hotel, as well as real estate assets. Alongside fentanyl charges, he is also facing charges in the U.S. pioneered the manufacture of fentanyl and has for years trafficked it into our country, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans and devastating countless communities. FBI Director Chris Wray said the arrest, in fact, El Mayo, who was its real leader. Not only ruthless, he was also innovative, creating and maintaining some of the earliest links with Colombian cartels to flood the U.S. with cocaine and heroin, and more latterly, fentanyl. His leadership of the criminal empire has endured in the face of changing presidents in Mexico and the U.S., amid repeated anti-drug offensives from successive governments and constant efforts by his enemies in other drug trafficking organizations to bring him down. That is no mean feat in the violent, dangerous, and treacherous underworld in which he has operated as an unassailable kingpin for many years. Yet that extraordinary resilience appears to have run out in El Paso, Texas, a city blighted by the influx of the synthetic opioid, fentanyl, much of which was smuggled in by his organization. Subscribe to our channel for more latest updates. Thanks for watching. Now that Vice President Kamala Harris is closing in on the Democratic nomination to take on Republican Donald Trump, talk has turned to her running mate. She will need to pick one by the time Democratic Party delegates vote next month at a convention in Chicago to officially confirm who is on the ticket. A team to vet the people in the frame has been reportedly appointed to explore who might best stand up to the scrutiny of the national spotlight. Historically, vice presidents are picked to complement a candidate, and strategists believe for that reason she may pick a white man from a swing state. Here's a bit on the names reported to be in the mix, with an assessment of their chances by North America correspondent Anthony Zurcher. Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania governor. The charismatic governor of Pennsylvania, a state that many think is essentially must-win for Harris, has oratory skills which have drawn comparisons with Barack Obama. He would be the first Jewish vice president and has peeled off Republican voters in his home state. Shapiro has seen high approval ratings since he was elected in 2022 in a swing state Trump narrowly carried in 2016. He made national headlines last year after quickly rebuilding a collapsed bridge on a crucial Philadelphia highway, a major political victory for a first-term governor. The speedy repair was hailed by many as the perfect infrastructure talking point for a potential 2028 presidential candidate. Anthony Zurcher. He could help lock down an important, perhaps the most important, state for Ms. Harris. But his outspoken support of Israel during the Gaza war and his criticism of student protests in his state might open up divisions within the Democratic Party that the vice president is keen to avoid. Mark Kelly, Arizona senator, the former astronaut and Navy combat pilot, has an all-action edge, while his strong border stance and occasional criticisms of the Biden administration could be eye-catching for floating conservative voters. His Democratic superstar wife, Gabby Giffords, who was shot in a mass shooting, gives him a personal story as strong as his CV. The former House Congresswoman was seriously wounded and has become one of the leading voices on gun safety laws. With gun violence a major campaign issue for Democrats, Mr. Kelly's personal story could resonate with voters. AZ. Mark Kelly is from a state that Democrats would love to keep in their column. His selection would create challenges down the road, however, as Democrats would have to gear up for another pivotal Senate campaign to hold his seat in a special election in 2026. Roy Cooper, North Carolina governor. Mr. Cooper is another Democrat who has seen great success in a state that has voted for Trump twice, both in 2016 and in 2020. Along with his popularity, Mr. Cooper brings with him a deep wealth of knowledge, having served in public office since 1987. He takes credit for a booming economy, which helped him become the only Democratic governor to win in a Trump state in 2020. And he has long been friends with Harris, as both of them previously were attorneys general in their own states, so there would be no question marks about chemistry. AZ, Roy Cooper is from another electoral battleground state, and unlike some of the other possibilities, will be already leaving office at the end of this year because of term limits. At 69, his age may be an issue if Harris is looking to pick someone who can succeed her in 8 years. Andy Beshear, Kentucky governor. Mr. Beshear has carved out a successful career as the Democratic leader of a deep red state, which voted for Trump by a margin of more than 25 percentage points in 2020. That year, he became the only Democratic governor to win in a Trump state, helped by the state's booming pre-COVID economy. Supporting public education and protecting reproductive rights are also key issues for him. Kamala Harris and he have been close for a long time, so there would be no question marks about chemistry if picked as her running mate. The most youthful of those in the frame can help Harris underline the generation gap with the top of the Republican ticket. And he's not afraid of talking about his Christian faith and its impact on his personality and work, something that might endear him to parts of America beyond Harris's reach. AZ. He is from another electoral battleground state and, unlike some of the other possibilities, will be already leaving office at the end of this year because of term limits. At 69, his age may be an issue if Harris is looking to pick someone who can succeed her in 8 years. J.B. Pritzker, Illinois governor. J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, has raised his profile in recent years by going after Trump and defending Mr. Biden. The billionaire businessman, heir to the Hyatt hotel chain, is quick to post criticism of Trump on social media. After the debate, he called Trump a liar and said he is a 34-count convicted felon who cares only about himself. Like Ms. Whitmer, Mr. Pritzker has a track record of completing agenda items on left-wing Democrats' to-do lists on issues like abortion rights and gun control. AZ. He has a blunt Chicago manner that lends an air of everyman authenticity to his politics. Coming from deeply Democratic Illinois, however, may limit his appeal in the Midwestern swing states, particularly given Ms. Harris's liberal California background. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The two-term governor of Michigan is an increasingly popular Midwest Democrat who many pundits speculate will run for president one day. She is taking a leading role in the Harris campaign and once told the New York Times that she wants to see a Generation X president in 2028, but stopped short of suggesting that she might fill that role. In 2022, she led a campaign that left Michigan Democrats in control of the state's legislature and the governor's mansion. That allowed her to enact a number of progressive policies, including protecting Michigan abortion access and the passage of gun safety measures. But the 52-year-old appeared to rule herself out of the VP stakes when she told a reporter she had no plans to leave Michigan. AZ. She could help Ms. Harris lock down another key Midwestern state, Michigan, and potentially appeal to voters throughout the Midwest. The selection of the popular governor would create a history-making all-woman ticket at a time when women are a key Democratic constituency. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. It is no secret that Pete Buttigieg has presidential aspirations. He ran in 2020 and is often touted as one of the Biden administration's best communicators. Mr. Buttigieg has managed a number of public crises during his time as Transportation Secretary. He helped to oversee the government response to the East Palestine train derailment in Ohio, the Baltimore bridge collapse, and Southwest Airlines scheduling crisis in 2022. Mr. Buttigieg stated on X, formerly Twitter, that Mr. Biden had earned his place among the best and most consequential presidents in American history. He said he would do all that I can to help elect Kamala Harris the next president. AZ. Pete Buttigieg was the surprise hit of the 2020 Democratic presidential race, generating a loyal following that is still with him. His ability to adeptly define and defend the party's priorities, even in hostile territory like Fox News, could be a useful skill for a running mate. Tim Walz, Minnesota governor. The 60-year-old served 12 years as a U.S. congressman before his successful 2018 run to lead the state. His performance as governor was thrust into the national spotlight when he sent in the National Guard to deal with mass protests after the death of George Floyd. He himself had a 20-year service in the National Guard before his political career, a time when he also taught at a high school and worked as an assistant football coach. AZ. Minnesota may not be a top-line battleground state, but Tim Walz has the small-town Midwestern sensibilities to give him some cross-border appeal. While he governs from the left, his plain-spoken manner and religious convictions give him a moderate sheen. Retired Admiral William McRaven, retired Navy Admiral William McRaven, 68, cemented his legacy in Washington by overseeing the special operation that killed Osama bin Laden. He then moved into academia, becoming the Chancellor of the University of Texas for 4 years before retiring in 2018. In recent years, Mr. McRaven has emerged as a vocal critic of Trump, particularly on national security issues, and strong backer of President Biden. He went viral in 2014 for his address at a University of Texas commencement speech, in which he gave 10 lessons for living a meaningful life, one of which was to make your bed. Admiral McRaven wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post in June, calling on Americans to rise above our internal strife and political divisions. AZ. He would instantly burnish the Democratic ticket's national security credentials at a time when there are 2 major regional wars and the threat of more. But opting for a candidate with no political track record and no experience navigating the bright national stage opens a new set of risks. Other possible candidates. The list of potential nominees to the ticket stretches beyond these Democrats, as the party has developed a deep bench of talent. Maryland Governor Wes Moore found himself in the spotlight in recent months, following the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. Senators Amy Klobuchar and Cory Booker have run for president in the past and have some name recognition among Democrats. And Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock, who won a closely contested Senate race in a swing state. Share your feedback, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.